Close your eyes. Imagine opening your eyes beneath a warm Mediterranean sun. The air smells of fresh bread, olive oil, and the sea around you. Narrow stone streets slowly come to life. Merchants are opening their shops. Children are running through the marketplace. In the distance, the marble temples of the Acropolis glow beneath the morning light. This is not a world of emperors or legendary battles. This is the world of ordinary people. People who woke before sunrise, worked with their hands, raised families, argued in crowded marketplaces, celebrated festivals, and dreamed about the future more than 2,000 years ago. But what was everyday life in ancient Greece really like? What did they eat? Where did they sleep? How were children raised? What did a normal day look like? Inside one of history's most influential civilizations. Tonight, we're going to find out. Hello and welcome. If you enjoy falling asleep while exploring the greatest mysteries of history and science, you're in exactly the right place. I'm truly happy you're here tonight. Before we begin, I'd love to know which of my night companions are joining me this evening, wherever you are in the world, and whatever time it is where you live. Don't forget to leave your city and your local time in the comments below. One of my favorite parts of every morning is reading your messages. Seeing night companions checking in from every corner of the world always reminds me of one simple thing. Even on the quietest nights, none of us are ever truly alone. And now, let's dim the lights just a little more. If these peaceful journeys through history help you relax, quiet your mind, or drift off to sleep, I'd really appreciate it if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel. That small gesture helps our Night Companions community continue to grow. Now, make yourself comfortable, take one slow, deep breath, and together, let's step back more than 2,400 years to the streets of ancient Greece, a civilization that gave the world philosophy, democracy, the Olympic Games, and ideas that still shape our lives today. But tonight, we won't follow kings or famous generals. Instead, we'll experience ancient Greece through the eyes of the people who actually lived there. This is the true story of everyday life in ancient Greece. You slowly open your eyes. The first thing you notice is the warmth. Golden sunlight already fills the small room around you. The air carries the familiar scent of fresh bread baking somewhere nearby, olive oil, wood smoke, and the faint salty breeze drifting inland from the Aegean Sea. For a brief moment, everything feels strangely familiar. Then you remember. You are not in the modern world anymore. You have awakened in ancient Greece. Outside your home you hear footsteps echoing along narrow stone streets. Somebody is leading a donkey loaded with clay jars. A merchant is already calling out to early customers. Farther away another voice greets a neighbor before disappearing into the growing sounds of the city. Unlike many of the great civilizations you may have imagined, this place is not silent or covered in magnificent marble. It is alive. It breathes. It smells. It moves. Children laugh somewhere nearby. Dogs bark from hidden courtyards. Birds circle high above the rooftops. Every new sound reminds you that this city has already been awake for hours. You rise from a simple bed. It is little more than a wooden frame with woven ropes supporting a thin mattress stuffed with wool or dried plant fibers. A folded blanket rests beside you. The room itself is surprisingly modest. The walls are built from stone and sun-dried brick. The floor is hard, packed earth or simple plaster, depending on the wealth of the household. There are no glass windows. only wooden shutters that allow the morning air to enter while keeping the strongest afternoon heat outside. Most homes contain very little furniture, a few stools, a small wooden table, storage chests, clay jars filled with grain, olive oil, and wine. Life here is practical. Nothing exists simply for decoration. Every object has a purpose. You step toward the doorway and enter the central courtyard. Immediately the world becomes brighter. Like many Greek homes, this house is built around an open courtyard rather than facing directly toward the street. The design keeps the family connected while protecting them from both heat and curious strangers. Sunlight pours into the open space. A small fig tree grows near one corner. Several clay pots hold herbs used for cooking and medicine. Rainwater collected during the winter is carefully stored inside large ceramic containers. Water is precious. Every drop matters. A woman is already grinding grain between heavy stone wheels. The steady rhythm has probably echoed through Greek homes every morning for generations. Nearby, another family member prepares bread that will soon be baked inside a clay oven. The smell fills the entire courtyard. Simple bread made from barley is the most common choice. Wheat exists but is often more expensive. Bread is not simply food. It is the foundation of nearly every meal. As you watch, everyone already knows their responsibilities. No one waits for instructions. Children help carry water. Older family members prepare food. Adults organize the work that must be finished before the hottest hours of the day arrive. Life follows the rhythm of the sun. There are no clocks hanging on the walls. Time is measured by light. The rising sun begins the working day. The position of its shadow determines when it is time to rest. As evening approaches, families slowly return home together. If you had expected luxury, you would be surprised. Even many wealthy Greek citizens lived in homes that appear remarkably simple by modern standards. Their greatest treasures were not comfortable furniture or elaborate decorations. Instead, wealth often appeared in fine pottery, beautiful textiles, well-crafted jewelry, or the education given to their children. Outside the house, the streets begin filling with more people. Most roads are narrow and uneven. Some are paved with stone, while others remain little more than packed earth. Dust rises beneath every passing footstep. During rainy seasons, mud can quickly replace the dust. There are no traffic lights, no engines, only people, animals, wooden carts, and endless conversations. As you begin walking through the neighborhood, you notice that nearly every home presents a plain exterior. Unlike modern cities, where people often display their wealth on the outside, Greek families usually focused on the life taking place within their courtyards. Privacy was important, especially for women who spent much of their daily lives inside the household. Soon the city begins opening before you. White limestone buildings reflect the morning sunlight. Colorful painted decorations appear around temples and public buildings. Contrary to the image, many people imagine ancient Greece was not a world of pure white marble. Many statues, temples, and public monuments were originally painted in bright reds, deep blues, rich greens, and brilliant gold. The ancient world was far more colorful than most museums suggest today. You pause for a moment. High above everything else, one magnificent hill dominates the skyline, the Acropolis. Its temples seem almost to float above the city. Visible from nearly every direction, they remind everyone below of the gods watching over Athens. But despite their beauty, those temples are not where most people spend their day. The true heart of ancient Greece is found much closer to the ground, inside crowded homes, busy workshops, narrow streets, and marketplaces filled with ordinary people trying to build ordinary lives, because history is rarely created only by kings. It is created by millions of quiet mornings just like this one, and yours has only just begun. The first meal of the day is already beginning. Do not imagine a large breakfast filled with sweet pastries or steaming cups of coffee. Neither exists here. Instead, the morning meal is simple, practical, designed to provide enough energy for many hours of work ahead. A piece of barley bread rests on the table. Its crust is dark and firm. Its texture is heavier than the soft bread many people enjoy today. Beside it sits a small bowl containing olives harvested months earlier. There is fresh goat cheese, perhaps a handful of dried figs. If the family is fortunate, there may also be a little honey collected from nearby hillsides. Water is poured into a clay cup. Sometimes it is mixed with a small amount of wine, not because people wish to become drunk, but because diluted wine was often considered safer than untreated water stored for long periods. As everyone eats, there is surprisingly little conversation. The day ahead requires concentration. Many hours of physical labor still remain. Food is respected. Very little is ever wasted. Every harvest depends upon unpredictable weather. Every family understands that one poor season can completely change their future. After breakfast, the household slowly separates. Each person follows responsibilities shaped by age, gender, occupation, and social status. The father may head toward the Agora. Perhaps he owns a pottery workshop. Maybe he is a blacksmith, a carpenter, a merchant, or simply a farmer bringing vegetables into the city for sale. If he is wealthy enough, he may spend part of the morning discussing politics with other citizens. If he is poor, every hour will likely be spent earning enough to feed his family. The mother usually remains at home. Managing a Greek household is a full-time occupation. She supervises food preparation, organizes storage, repairs clothing, raises children, oversees servants if the family owns any, and ensures that everything required for daily life continues without interruption. The smooth operation of an entire household often depends upon her knowledge and experience. Children also have responsibilities. Young boys begin learning practical skills from an early age. Some attend schools where they study reading, writing, mathematics, music, and physical exercise. Education is considered one of the foundations of becoming a responsible citizen. Girls are usually educated within the home. They learn cooking, weaving, household management, and many of the skills expected in adult life. Although opportunities differ greatly between boys and girls, every child begins preparing for adulthood almost as soon as they can walk. Outside, the streets continue growing busier. A shepherd guides sheep toward nearby fields. A fisherman returns from the coast, carrying his morning catch. The smell of fresh fish briefly mixes with bread, herbs, smoke, and warm stone. Craftsmen open heavy wooden doors to reveal workshops filled with tools. Potters shape wet clay into graceful jars. Bronze workers hammer glowing metal beneath small furnaces. Leather workers stretch animal hides. Every street seems to produce something different. Nothing here arrives from a distant factory. Almost everything is made by hand. Every object requires time, skill, and patience. As you continue walking, another detail becomes impossible to ignore. Nearly every face you pass belongs to someone who knows this city intimately. Neighbors greet one another by name. Families have lived here for generations. News travels quickly. Good harvests, births, marriages, political arguments, religious festivals. Everyone eventually hears everything. Ancient Greek cities are not anonymous places. Community shapes nearly every aspect of life. Eventually, the streets widen. The buildings become larger. Voices grow louder. You have reached the Agora. This is far more than a marketplace. It is the beating heart of the city. Merchants arrange colorful pottery upon wooden tables. Farmers display onions, garlic, grapes, and freshly picked herbs. Olive oil shines inside enormous ceramic jars. Bundles of wool wait beside woven baskets. The smell constantly changes as you walk. Fresh bread, goat cheese, wood smoke, animals, perfume, fish, flowers, warm stone beneath the rising sun. Every few steps another conversation catches your attention. Some people negotiate prices, others debate philosophy. Nearby, two elderly citizens passionately argue about recent political decisions. A young student quietly listens, perhaps hoping to learn something from experienced voices. Noisy as it is, the Agora possesses its own rhythm. Nothing feels rushed. People expect conversations to last. Business is often built upon trust, developed over many years rather than quick transactions. You notice something else that surprises you. The city is far more diverse than you expected. Travelers arrive from distant islands. Merchants speak unfamiliar accents. Sailors bring stories from Egypt, Phoenicia, Cyprus, even lands far beyond the horizon. Athens may appear isolated on a map, yet through trade it is connected to much of the known world. Ideas travel alongside goods, new inventions, different beliefs. Foreign customs. Every ship entering the harbor brings more than cargo. It brings another small piece of the world. Standing in the middle of the Agora, you begin to understand something important. Ancient Greece was never simply a collection of magnificent temples. It was a civilization built upon ordinary people meeting each other every single day, buying bread, selling pottery, teaching children, sharing stories, disagreeing about politics, laughing with friends, planning tomorrow. And just like every civilization that would follow, its greatest strength was not found in marble monuments. It lived inside the daily lives of the people themselves. As the morning continues, the city grows warmer. The golden light that gently filled the streets at sunrise now reflects brightly from stone walls and whitewashed buildings. Shadows become shorter, voices become louder. The Agora remains busy behind you, but today you decide to leave the marketplace and explore another side of ancient Greece, the neighborhoods where people actually live. Walking through the narrow streets, you begin to notice that no two homes are exactly alike. Some belong to wealthy families with large courtyards and several rooms surrounding the open center. Others are little more than two or three modest spaces built closely beside neighboring houses. Yet despite these differences, nearly every home follows the same simple philosophy. Comfort comes from function rather than luxury. A heavy wooden door opens into another courtyard. You are invited inside by the owner. Hospitality is considered one of the greatest virtues in Greek society. A stranger who behaves respectfully may receive food, water, and shelter before even explaining who they are. Many Greeks believe that the gods themselves sometimes wander the world disguised as ordinary travelers. Treating a guest kindly is not simply good manners. It may also honor the gods. Inside the house, the temperature immediately feels cooler. The thick walls protect the family from the intense Mediterranean heat. Most daily life happens around the open courtyard. Here children play beneath the shade. Women prepare meals. Laundry hangs between wooden beams. A small cat quietly watches birds perched along the roof. The sounds of the city fade into the background. Life here feels peaceful. One corner of the courtyard is occupied by a loom nearly as tall as an adult. Long threads stretch tightly between wooden beams. A woman carefully guides colored wool through them with remarkable speed. Every movement appears effortless, but weaving is one of the most valuable skills a Greek woman can possess. Clothing, blankets, curtains, even decorative fabrics all begin here. A single piece of cloth may require weeks to complete. Every thread represents hours of careful work. You look around the room expecting large wardrobes filled with clothing. Instead, you find only a few carefully folded garments. Most people own surprisingly little. A simple tunic for daily work, perhaps a heavier cloak for cooler weather. Sandals made from leather, a belt, nothing more. Clothing is expensive because every piece must be created by hand. Owning fewer garments simply means taking better care of each one. Near another wall stands a large collection of painted pottery. Some jars are taller than your waist. Others fit comfortably in your hands. Every shape serves a purpose. One stores olive oil. Another preserves wine. One protects grain from insects. Smaller vessels hold perfume spices or medicinal herbs. Pottery surrounds almost every aspect of Greek life. It carries food across the sea, stores family supplies, decorates religious ceremonies, even accompanies the dead into their tombs. Many of the painted scenes upon these vessels tell stories: heroes battling monsters, ships crossing dangerous waters, athletes racing across stadiums, gods watching from Mount Olympus. For families unable to read these images, preserve myths passed from one generation to the next. In many ways, the pottery itself becomes a history book. Children gather nearby while an older woman begins telling one of those stories aloud. She speaks of clever Odysseus trying to find his way home after the Trojan War. The youngest children listen with wide eyes. Although they have heard the tale before, they never seem to grow tired of it. Stories are not merely entertainment. They teach courage, wisdom, patience, honor. Every generation inherits the same legends. Long before books become common, most knowledge survives because someone continues telling the stories. As the tale ends, one small boy picks up a smooth piece of wood and pretends it is a sword. Another imagines himself defeating a mythical creature. Their games mirror the stories surrounding them. Children everywhere use imagination. Whether in ancient Greece or the modern world, very little has changed. Soon another sound fills the courtyard, the gentle clucking of chickens. A goat wanders lazily near the entrance. Animals are an ordinary part of daily life. They provide milk, eggs, meat, leather, wool, even transportation. Nothing is wasted. Every resource matters. Outside the city walls, farmers work endlessly to produce enough food for thousands of people living within Athens and countless other Greek communities. Back inside the house, the midday meal is already being prepared. Unlike the evening meal, this one remains light: fresh bread, olives, cheese, seasonal vegetables, perhaps lentils cooked slowly over a small fire. Fish is common near the coast. Meat appears much less often. For many ordinary families, it is reserved for festivals or religious sacrifices. As everyone gathers together, you notice another important difference from modern life. Meals are rarely rushed. People eat while talking quietly, discussing work, neighbors, harvests, family matters. The meal strengthens not only the body, but also the relationships that hold the household together. The house itself may appear simple. Its walls may lack expensive decoration. Its furniture may be limited. Yet within these modest rooms, something incredibly valuable exists. A family, a shared routine. Generations living beneath the same roof. Parents teaching children. Grandparents passing down stories, skills, recipes, traditions. Every ordinary day quietly prepares the next generation to continue the same way of life. And without realizing it, you begin to understand that the true strength of ancient Greece was never built only in temples or public squares. It was built inside homes like this one family at a time. After the midday meal, the city becomes quieter. The hottest hours of the afternoon encourage many people to slow their pace. Some return indoors where thick stone walls provide welcome shade. Others continue working, knowing there is still much to accomplish before sunset. You decide to explore the neighborhoods once again. This time your attention is drawn not to the houses themselves, but to the people moving through them. An elderly man sits outside his doorway, carefully repairing a fishing net. His hands move slowly but with remarkable precision. He has likely repeated this same task thousands of times throughout his life. Nearby, a young apprentice watches every movement. No instructions are written down. There are no classrooms. Knowledge passes directly from one generation to the next. Observation, practice, patience. That is how most skills are learned. Across the street, a bronze worker stands beside a glowing furnace. The heat is intense. He pours molten metal into a carefully carved mold before stepping back to wait. Minutes later, the rough shape of a knife begins to appear. The finished blade will eventually pass through many different hands. A farmer may use it to harvest crops. A cook may prepare meals with it. A merchant may trade it in another city hundreds of miles away. Every object begins with someone willing to spend hours creating it. Nothing feels disposable. A little farther along you hear rhythmic tapping. A sculptor chips away at a block of marble. Small fragments fall to the ground like white snow. The statue is far from complete. Perhaps it will take months before anyone sees the finished work. Ancient Greek artists understand something that still inspires people today. Great beauty cannot be rushed. Each careful strike removes only a tiny amount of stone. Yet slowly a human face begins to emerge. Eyes, nose, lips, a curl of hair. It almost feels as though the figure has been waiting inside the marble all along. Children stop to watch. The sculptor smiles but never pauses. His concentration never leaves the stone. Nearby, another workshop smells completely different. Warm leather fills the air. Sandals hang from wooden pegs while belts and bags wait to be collected. A customer tries on a new pair of sandals. The craftsman kneels to adjust the straps by hand. There are no standard sizes. Every item is made for the individual who will wear it. As you continue walking, you notice something else. Very little noise comes from inside the houses. Most windows remain small. Many face inward toward private courtyards instead of the street. Daily family life remains hidden behind thick walls. The public world belongs to conversation and commerce. The private world belongs to family. Eventually, you arrive at a small neighborhood fountain. Several women have gathered with large clay jars balanced beside them. Collecting water is part of everyday life. Some households have cisterns that store rainwater. Others rely on public fountains supplied through impressive engineering projects. The work appears ordinary, yet it creates one of the city's most important social spaces. While waiting their turn, the women exchange stories. News travels quickly. Someone has become engaged. A merchant has returned from Egypt. A child has recovered from an illness. Another family plans to celebrate a religious festival. Long before newspapers or telephones, these conversations connect the entire community. No one seems to hurry away. The journey for water becomes an opportunity to strengthen friendships. You begin to notice how closely every part of daily life is connected. The baker knows the farmer. The farmer depends on the potter. The potter buys sandals from the leather worker. The leather worker purchases olive oil from a merchant. Every profession supports another. The city functions because thousands of ordinary people quietly depend upon one another. As the afternoon slowly passes, more children appear in the streets. Some roll wooden hoops along the road using sticks. Others toss small balls made from stitched leather. Several boys challenge each other to running races. Laughter echoes between the buildings. A little girl carefully balances a clay jug on her head while pretending to be her mother. The games often imitate adult life. Children learn by copying the world around them. There are no electronic screens, no manufactured toys filling entire rooms, yet imagination seems limitless. A smooth stone becomes treasure. A broken branch becomes a spear. A piece of cloth becomes the sail of a great ship crossing distant seas. Watching them play reminds you that childhood has always shared something universal. Curiosity, adventure, wonder. As shadows begin stretching across the streets once again, workers slowly finish their tasks. Shopkeepers close heavy wooden shutters. Animals are guided back toward their shelters. The smell of evening fires begins replacing the heat of the afternoon. The city is preparing for another gathering, not in the marketplace, not in the workshops, but inside the homes where families will soon come together once more. The busiest hours of work are ending. The most peaceful part of the day is about to begin. As the afternoon slowly fades into evening, you decide to leave the quiet neighborhoods behind. Ahead of you stands one of the most important places in the Greek world, not because it is the largest, nor because it is the richest, but because it is where ideas are exchanged as often as goods. The Agora is changing. Earlier in the day, it was filled with merchants unloading carts and arranging their products. Now another rhythm begins to take over. Many citizens have finished their work. Instead of rushing home, they gather here. Some stand beneath shaded colonnades discussing the latest political decisions. Others inspect pottery from distant islands. Young students follow respected teachers, hoping to overhear a conversation worth remembering. The marketplace is becoming something much greater than a place to buy and sell. It is becoming the living heart of the city. You walk slowly between rows of market stalls. Everywhere you look, there is movement. Bundles of herbs hang from wooden beams. Fresh grapes spill from woven baskets. Large clay jars filled with olive oil stand beside carefully stacked loaves of barley bread. A fisherman proudly displays silver fish caught only hours earlier. Nearby, another merchant offers honey collected from mountain hives. The smell constantly changes as you walk: fresh bread, crushed mint, Goat cheese, olive oil, warm figs, smoke from nearby cooking fires. The entire marketplace feels alive. Coins change hands. Hands are shaken. Prices are debated. Laughter rises above the crowd before disappearing beneath dozens of overlapping conversations. Yet bargaining here is rarely loud or aggressive. Many buyers already know the merchants personally. Trust is often worth more than a small discount. A dishonest trader may earn a few extra coins today, but tomorrow no one will return to his stall. Reputation is one of the most valuable possessions a Greek citizen can have. As you continue walking, you notice something unexpected. Not everyone here is buying food. A man sits quietly beside a table covered with wax tablets. For a small payment, he writes letters for those who cannot write themselves. Nearby, another man teaches young boys how to read short passages from Homer. Education is everywhere, not hidden behind school walls. Learning spills naturally into everyday life. Further along, a crowd begins gathering around two men engaged in an animated discussion. One argues passionately that courage is the greatest human virtue. The other insists wisdom is far more important. People stop to listen. Some nod in agreement. Others quietly disagree. No one expects the conversation to end quickly. In ancient Greece, questions are often considered more valuable than immediate answers. This willingness to debate almost everything becomes one of the defining characteristics of Greek civilization. Here, ideas are tested through conversation, not silence. Perhaps somewhere nearby, a young philosopher is listening carefully, a boy who will someday become famous throughout history. After all, Athens is home to remarkable thinkers. Socrates walks these very streets asking difficult questions that leave his listeners both fascinated and frustrated. He owns no grand palace. He commands no army. Yet thousands of years later, people will still remember his conversations. His student plate will eventually establish one of the first great academies. Another student named Aristotle will explore subjects ranging from biology and ethics to astronomy and politics. Few people walking through the Agora today realize they are sharing the same streets as minds that will influence humanity for centuries. Of course, not everyone spends the afternoon discussing philosophy. Many people remain focused on ordinary concerns. One merchant worries about tomorrow's shipment arriving from the islands. A farmer calculates whether this year's olive harvest will be enough to support his family. A craftsman searches for better bronze at a reasonable price. Daily survival always comes before intellectual curiosity, yet somehow both worlds exist side by side. A conversation about grain prices may happen only a few steps away from a debate about justice or happiness. This mixture gives the city an extraordinary energy. Knowledge belongs not only to scholars, curiosity belongs to everyone. As you approach another section of the Agora, you notice officials seated behind wooden tables. Citizens approach them one by one. Some register legal agreements, others settle disputes. Several prepare for meetings where public decisions will soon be discussed. Athens proudly describes itself as a democracy. Although not everyone may participate, women, foreign residents, and enslaved people remain excluded from political life. Only adult male citizens have the right to vote directly on many important issues. Even so, the idea remains revolutionary for its time. Instead of allowing a king to decide everything, many decisions are placed into the hands of ordinary citizens. The system is imperfect, sometimes unfair, often influenced by powerful speakers. Yet it represents one of history's earliest attempts to allow people a voice in governing themselves. Standing quietly among the crowd, you begin to understand that democracy is not simply a word. It is something practiced, argued, defended, and constantly challenged by the people living it. Long before history books describe ancient Greece as the birthplace of democracy, it is simply another ordinary afternoon in the Agora. One more day filled with conversations that no one realizes will echo across thousands of years. As the conversations continue around you, another sound slowly rises above the marketplace. Music. A young man sits beneath the shade of a colonnade, holding a lyre across his lap. His fingers gently pluck the strings while people pause for only a moment before continuing their day. The melody is soft, peaceful. It seems to drift naturally through the warm afternoon air. Music surrounds daily life in ancient Greece. It accompanies religious ceremonies, family celebrations, public festivals, even education. Children often learn rhythm and melody alongside reading and mathematics. The Greeks believed that music shapes character. A balanced mind should be nourished not only by knowledge, but also by harmony. Nearby, a teacher walks with several young students. Rather than delivering a long lecture, he asks a simple question. What does it mean to live a good life? The children answer one by one. Some speak confidently, others hesitate. The teacher smiles. There is no single correct answer. Learning here is not always about memorizing facts. It is about learning how to think. Questions often matter more than certainty. This approach surprises you. Thousands of years later, many classrooms around the world will still follow a similar idea, not because the Greeks invented curiosity, but because they recognized its extraordinary power. A little farther ahead, a group of boys practice speaking before a small audience. One stands upon a low stone platform. His voice trembles at first, then gradually grows stronger. Public speaking is an important skill. A citizen may someday defend himself in court, argue for a new law, or persuade fellow Athenians during an assembly. Words carry enormous influence. A talented speaker can shape the future of an entire city. As the young boy finishes his short speech, several older men nod with quiet approval. Confidence takes years to develop. Every great speaker once struggled to find the right words. The marketplace itself becomes an endless classroom. You notice travelers sharing stories from distant lands. A sailor describes enormous temples along the Nile. Another speaks of crowded Phoenician ports filled with purple cloth and cedar wood. A merchant explains how strange spices from the East have become increasingly valuable. Every conversation expands the boundaries of the known world. Maps remain incomplete. Many places are still mysterious. Yet ideas travel remarkably fast. Every ship entering the harbor brings not only goods, but also new knowledge. This constant exchange helps ancient Greece become one of the intellectual centers of the Mediterranean. The people gathered here do not realize it, but they are participating in something extraordinary. Knowledge is no longer confined to palaces or temples. It lives in public spaces where anyone willing to listen may learn something new. As the sun slowly begins descending, the light softens across the marble buildings. Long shadows stretch between the columns. The busiest hours of trade have ended. Merchants begin counting their earnings. Some carefully wrap unsold goods in cloth before carrying them home. Others remain behind speaking with friends they may not see again until tomorrow. Nothing appears rushed. There is time for one last conversation, one final story, one more shared laugh before evening arrives. Nearby, a father walks hand in hand with his young daughter. He points toward the Acropolis rising above the city. She listens carefully as he explains the names of the temples. Perhaps years from now, she will tell the same stories to her own children. This is how traditions survive, not through monuments alone, but through countless ordinary conversations between generations. As you continue walking, you realize that every corner of Athens teaches something. A sculptor teaches patience. A merchant teaches trust. A philosopher teaches curiosity. A musician teaches harmony. A parent teaches memory. Each person carries a different piece of the civilization. None could preserve it alone. Together, they create something far greater than themselves. Eventually, the Agora begins emptying. The sounds of bargaining disappear. Footsteps replace conversation. Families slowly make their way through the narrow streets toward home. Thin streams of smoke begin rising above rooftops as evening meals are prepared. The city seems to exhale after another busy day. You pause for one final look behind you. Only a few hours ago, this square was filled with thousands of voices. Tomorrow it will come alive once again, with new debates, new friendships, new discoveries, and new ideas. Because in ancient Greece, the marketplace is never simply a place where people exchange goods. It is where an entire civilization exchanges knowledge. And perhaps that is why its influence continues to echo more than 2,000 years later, long after the merchants have gone home, long after the market stalls have disappeared. The ideas born here are still quietly traveling the world. As the evening draws closer, the city begins changing once again. The busy marketplace slowly empties. Workshop doors close one by one. Merchants carry the last of their goods home. The noise that filled the streets throughout the day gradually softens into quiet conversations and slow footsteps. But while much of Athens prepares to rest, another part of the city is only beginning to awaken. Religion is woven into every part of daily life. It is not reserved for one special day each week, nor is it limited to magnificent temples standing high above the city. The gods are present everywhere, inside homes, along quiet roads, at busy crossroads, before every journey, during every harvest, and at nearly every family meal. No important decision begins without first seeking their favor. As you walk through a narrow street, you notice a tiny stone altar standing beside a doorway. Fresh flowers have been placed upon it. A small dish contains a few drops of olive oil. Another family has left a piece of bread. These offerings may seem insignificant, yet they reflect something deeply important. The Greeks believe that maintaining a good relationship with the gods requires regular acts of respect, not extravagant gifts, but thoughtful ones. A little farther ahead, an elderly woman pauses before a small statue of Hestia. She quietly whispers a prayer before continuing her walk. There is no audience, no ceremony, only a simple moment of gratitude. For many Greeks, faith is woven naturally into everyday routines. It feels as ordinary as baking bread or drawing water from a fountain. Eventually, you begin climbing the gentle slope leading toward the Acropolis. With every step, the buildings below become smaller. The sounds of the city fade into the distance. Above you, towering columns catch the warm light of the setting sun. Even after centuries, these temples continue to inspire awe. The Parthenon dominates everything around it. Its enormous marble columns appear almost perfectly balanced. From a distance, the building seems impossibly straight, yet many of its lines are actually slightly curved. The architects understood that the human eye could be deceived. Small adjustments created the illusion of perfect symmetry. Their understanding of mathematics and beauty remains astonishing even today. As you stand before the great temple, you notice something many modern visitors never experience. Color. The sculptures and decorations are not plain white. Bright reds, deep blues, rich greens, and shining gold once covered much of the building. The ancient Greek world is far more colorful than the weathered marble surviving today. Priests move quietly between the sacred buildings. The smell of burning incense drifts through the air. A family arrives carrying a basket of fruit as an offering. Nearby, another citizen thanks Athene for a successful journey. Religion here is rarely separated from ordinary life. Success in business, safe travel, healthy children, good harvests, everything may be connected to the good will of the gods. The Greek world is filled with divine personalities. Zeus rules the heavens, Poseidon commands the sea, Demeter protects agriculture, Apollo inspires music, prophecy, and healing, Artemis watches over the wilderness, Ares represents war, Aphrodite embodies love and beauty. Each god possesses strengths, weaknesses, emotions, jealousies, even disagreements. Unlike distant and mysterious beings, these gods often behave in surprisingly human ways. They argue, fall in love, become angry, forgive, punish, and occasionally help those who earn their favor. Their stories fill every corner of Greek culture. Children hear them before falling asleep. Artists paint them onto pottery. Poets sing about their adventures. Actors perform them before thousands of spectators. The myths become a shared language understood by nearly everyone. Standing beside one of the temple walls, you overhear a father speaking quietly to his son. He points toward the enormous statue of Athene that once stood proudly within the sacred complex. He explains that wisdom is stronger than violence, that courage without intelligence often leads to disaster. The boy listens carefully. Perhaps he understands only part of the lesson, but years later he may repeat those same words to his own children. In this way, mythology becomes more than entertainment. It becomes a guide for living. As the sunlight turns golden, the marble almost begins to glow. The city below stretches toward the distant sea. Hundreds of homes, countless workshops, busy streets, all protected beneath the watchful gaze of the gods. From this height, it becomes easier to understand why generations of Athenians believed their city occupied a special place in the world, not because it was the largest, nor because it possessed the strongest army, but because they believed wisdom itself had chosen to make its home here. The following morning begins much like the one before. The first light of dawn slowly spreads across the rooftops. Roosters announce the arrival of another day. The smell of fresh bread once again drifts through the streets. Yet today your journey takes you somewhere very different. Instead of following merchants toward the Agora or families returning to their homes, you walk toward one of the places where the future of every young citizen begins: education. To many civilizations, knowledge is a privilege reserved for a small group of priests or rulers. Ancient Greece is different. Not everyone receives the same education. Opportunities depend greatly upon wealth, gender, and the city in which a person lives. Yet among free male citizens, especially in Athens, learning is considered one of the foundations of a good life. A child is expected not only to grow stronger, but also wiser. You arrive at a small school shortly after sunrise. There is no large stone building filled with classrooms, no rows of desks, no ringing bells. Lessons often take place inside a private home or beneath the shaded walkway of a public building. The teacher sits quietly waiting while several boys gather around him. Each carries a small wooden writing tablet covered with wax. A pointed stylus rests in one hand. Mistakes are easily erased by smoothing the wax with the flat end of the tool. Paper is rare. Parchment is expensive. Nothing is wasted. The lesson begins with the alphabet. The children carefully repeat each letter aloud. Their voices rise together in a steady rhythm. Reading is not silent. Nearly everything is spoken. Words are meant to be heard as much as they are seen. After practicing letters, the boys begin copying short passages from the poems of Homer, the Iliad, the Odyssey. These great stories are far more than literature. They are lessons about courage, honor, friendship, pride, and the consequences of poor choices. Every generation grows up listening to the adventures of Achilles, Odysseus, Hector, and countless other heroes. The poems become a shared memory connecting the entire Greek world. One boy struggles to remember a passage. Rather than becoming angry, the teacher patiently repeats each line. Learning requires discipline, but it also requires persistence. Progress comes one sentence at a time. As the morning continues, another instructor arrives. His lesson is very different. Mathematics. Simple numbers soon become measurements, shapes, patterns. The children learn that mathematics explains far more than counting coins. It helps builders design temples, sailors navigate the sea, merchants calculate fair prices. Astronomers understand the movements of the heavens. Knowledge is practical. Every lesson has a purpose. Later, music becomes the focus of the morning. A young instructor distributes small lyres to several students. The children awkwardly place their fingers across the strings. At first, the sounds are uncertain. Some notes ring clearly, others do not. The teacher smiles. No one expects perfection. The Greeks believe that music develops balance within the mind. Just as exercise strengthens the body, music strengthens character. A well-educated citizen should understand both. Outside, another group of boys prepares for physical training. Education in ancient Greece is never limited to books alone. Running, wrestling, throwing the discus, throwing the javelin. These skills are considered just as valuable as reading or mathematics. A healthy body supports a healthy mind. The two are never separated. As you watch the children laughing during friendly competitions, it becomes clear that these activities are not simply preparation for war. They teach discipline, patience, self-control, respect for opponents. Victory is admired, but honorable behavior matters even more. The ideals learned here will eventually shape the character expected of adult citizens. Of course, not every child experiences the same education. Many boys from poorer families leave school early to help support their households. Girls usually remain at home where mothers and grandmothers teach them the practical skills needed for adult life. Cooking, weaving, managing the household, caring for younger children. Although their education follows a different path, it is no less important to the survival of the family. As the lessons continue, you begin noticing something remarkable. No one is studying simply to earn higher wages or to pass an examination. Education itself is viewed as one of life's greatest rewards, to understand the world, to ask better questions, to become wiser than yesterday. These are goals worth pursuing for their own sake. Perhaps that is one reason why the ideas born in ancient Greece continue to inspire people more than 2,000 years later. Its greatest achievement was not only building beautiful temples, it was teaching generations to believe that learning could become a lifelong journey. By the time the morning sun begins climbing higher into the sky, the city is already alive once again. But today, you decide to leave the busy streets of Athens behind. Beyond the stone walls, the landscape opens before you. Silver-green olive trees cover the hillsides. Small vineyards stretch across the valleys. Goats wander freely over rocky slopes. In the distance, the blue waters of the Aegean Sea shimmer beneath the sunlight. It is easy to forget that ancient Greece is not one great kingdom. It is a land of mountains, islands, deep valleys, and hundreds of independent city-states. Nature shapes almost every part of Greek life. Travel is often slow. Mountains separate communities. The sea connects them. For many Greeks, a boat is more useful than a horse. Long before roads link distant cities, ships carry people, goods, and ideas from one coastline to another. As you continue walking, the sounds of Athens slowly disappear behind you. Instead, you hear insects singing among wildflowers. Sheep bells echo across nearby hills. A shepherd whistles softly while guiding his flock toward fresh grass. Life outside the city moves at a gentler pace. Most Greek families depend directly or indirectly upon agriculture. Without successful harvests, there would be no busy marketplaces, no festivals, no temples. Everything begins with the land. You arrive at a small olive grove where several generations of one family are already working together. Some climb wooden ladders. Others carefully spread woven cloth beneath the trees. Long branches are gently shaken until ripe olives fall onto the fabric below. No fruit is wasted. Each olive will eventually become food, oil for cooking, fuel for lamps, medicine, soap, or precious cargo to be traded across the Mediterranean. Few plants are more valuable. The olive tree grows slowly. Some require decades before producing their finest harvests. Planting one is an act of patience, a gift intended not only for yourself, but also for your children and grandchildren. Nearby, an elderly farmer pauses beneath the shade of one of the oldest trees. Its twisted trunk tells the story of countless seasons. Perhaps this very tree was already standing when his grandfather was a young boy. Generations have cared for it, and it has cared for them in return. This relationship between people and the land feels deeply personal. Nothing here is rushed. Everything follows the rhythm of nature. Farther along the path, another family tends a vineyard. Heavy clusters of grapes hang beneath broad green leaves. Children carefully gather the ripest fruit into woven baskets. During harvest season, every available hand helps. Work becomes a shared responsibility. The grapes will become food, sweet juice, or wine that may be stored for months inside large clay jars. Wine is an ordinary part of Greek life. It accompanies meals, religious ceremonies, family celebrations, and gatherings among friends. Almost always it is mixed with water before being served. Drinking unmixed wine is often considered excessive and uncivilized. Moderation is admired. Balance is respected. As the morning grows warmer, you reach open fields where farmers cultivate barley and wheat. Simple wooden plows pulled by oxen slowly cut through the soil. The work is demanding. Every movement requires strength. There are no engines, no tractors, only human determination and the steady effort of animals that have worked beside people for thousands of years. A poor harvest can bring great hardship. Too much rain damages the crops. Too little rain does the same. The farmer watches the sky almost as carefully as he watches the earth beneath his feet. His future depends upon both. Scattered among the fields stand small stone shrines. Some are dedicated to Demeter, the goddess of agriculture. Others honor Dionysus, whose gifts include the vine. Passing farmers often leave a few flowers, a handful of grain, or a quiet prayer. Their faith grows naturally from the land they cultivate every day. For them, the changing seasons are not merely weather. They are reminders that life itself depends upon forces beyond human control. As you sit beneath the shade of a broad olive tree, you take a long look across the countryside. The view is peaceful, rolling hills, white farmhouses, blue sea on the horizon, birds gliding through the warm air. It is difficult to imagine that this quiet landscape supports one of the most influential civilizations in history. Yet every loaf of bread sold in Athens, every amphora filled with olive oil, every cup of wine enjoyed at a family table, every festival celebrating a successful harvest, begins here, far from the marble temples, far from the philosophers, far from the crowded Agora, because before ancient Greece became famous for its ideas, it first learned how to live from the land itself. Several days have passed since you first arrived in ancient Greece. You have walked through busy marketplaces, shared simple meals with local families, watched children learn their lessons, and wandered among peaceful olive groves beneath the warm Mediterranean sun. But today feels different. The excitement is impossible to ignore. People from every direction seem to be traveling toward the same destination. Some arrive on foot, others ride in carts pulled by mules. Ships unload passengers at nearby ports. Entire families travel together carrying blankets, baskets, and water for the long journey ahead. Their destination is Olympia. Every 4 years, the Greek world pauses for one extraordinary celebration, the Olympic Games, long before modern stadiums, long before gold medals, and long before millions watched through television screens. The Olympics were already bringing together people from across Greece, not only athletes, but merchants, poets, musicians, priests, families, and curious travelers hoping to witness something unforgettable. As you join the crowds, the atmosphere grows increasingly festive. The roads are filled with conversation. Strangers greet one another as though they have known each other for years. News travels quickly. People discuss which city has sent its strongest runners, who might win the wrestling competition, whether this year's chariot races will produce another legendary champion. For many visitors, the journey itself becomes part of the celebration. Eventually, the sacred sanctuary of Olympia appears before you. Tall trees surround the ancient site. Columns rise above the landscape. The air smells of pine wood, warm earth, and burning incense drifting from nearby altars. This is not simply a sporting event. It is a religious festival dedicated to Zeus. Before any competition begins, sacrifices are offered. Prayers are spoken. The gods are invited to watch. Athletes gather quietly beneath the shade of ancient trees. Some stretch their arms and shoulders. Others close their eyes for a few peaceful moments before the events begin. Their expressions reveal determination rather than fear. Victory here offers more than personal satisfaction. Winning brings honor to an entire city. Champions return home as heroes. Songs may be written about them. Statues may eventually stand in their honor, yet there are no enormous prizes waiting at the finish line. The official reward is astonishingly simple: a wreath woven from olive branches. No gold, no silver, no fortune. Only a crown cut from the sacred olive tree of Olympia. To modern eyes, this may seem surprising, but to the Greeks, glory itself is the greatest reward. Honor lasts far longer than wealth. You walk among the athletes preparing for competition. Most wear little more than a simple cloak while waiting for their events. Competitors perform naked during the contests themselves. The human body is celebrated as a symbol of strength, discipline, and harmony. Embarrassment is replaced by admiration. Years of careful training are visible in every movement. Powerful shoulders, strong legs, calloused hands. These bodies were not shaped inside comfortable gymnasiums. They were built through endless hours of running, wrestling, lifting stones, and practicing beneath the open sky. Nearby, young boys watch the older competitors with admiration. Perhaps one day they too will travel here representing their own cities. Dreams begin early. Every champion was once a child standing exactly where they now stand. A loud trumpet suddenly echoes across the sanctuary. The conversations fade. The first competition is about to begin. Spectators slowly make their way toward the stadium. There are no rows of wooden seats. Most people simply sit upon grassy slopes surrounding the track. The simplicity somehow makes the moment feel even more powerful. Thousands of eyes focus upon the starting line. The runners step forward. Each places one foot against a carved stone groove prepared for the race. Silence settles across the crowd. For a brief moment, the entire Greek world seems to stop breathing. Then comes the signal. The runners explode forward. Dust rises beneath their feet. Muscles strain with every step. The crowd erupts into cheers. Some shout the names of their cities. Others simply marvel at the incredible speed unfolding before them. The race lasts only moments, yet those moments will be remembered for years. More competitions follow throughout the day. Powerful wrestlers grip one another searching for the smallest advantage. Boxers exchange careful blows while spectators gasp at every movement. The discus spins gracefully through the bright afternoon sky. The javelin flies astonishing distances before striking the earth. Each event celebrates a different form of excellence: strength, balance, precision, endurance, self-control. As you watch one athlete quietly help his defeated opponent back to his feet, you realize something important. Victory matters, but dignity matters too. Respect for competitors remains one of the highest ideals of the games. Only one person may win, yet every athlete earns admiration simply by standing before the people of Greece willing to test the limits of body and spirit. Looking across the crowded sanctuary, you understand why these games will survive in human memory for thousands of years. Because they celebrate something far greater than competition. They celebrate what human beings can become when discipline, courage, perseverance, and hope come together beneath the same bright Mediterranean sky. As the competitions continue, the atmosphere at Olympia becomes even more remarkable. Victories are celebrated with joyful cheers. Defeats are accepted with quiet dignity. The athletes know they have already achieved something extraordinary simply by standing among the finest competitors in the Greek world. The games are about much more than determining who can run the fastest or throw the farthest. For a few precious days, hundreds of rival cities become part of a single community. Throughout most of the year, Athens and Sparta may distrust one another. Corinth may compete fiercely with Argos. Old disagreements may linger for generations. Yet during the Olympic Games, an extraordinary tradition takes effect: the sacred truce. Messengers travel across Greece announcing that all warfare must temporarily cease. Roads become safe for travelers. Athletes and spectators can journey to Olympia without fear of attack. Even enemies may pass each other peacefully along the same road. The truce does not erase conflict forever, but it reminds everyone that there are moments when shared traditions become more important than rivalry. As you walk through the sanctuary, you see people from every corner of the Greek world speaking different local dialects while sharing the same customs. Merchants display beautiful pottery painted with scenes of heroes and athletes. Bronze workers offer finely crafted helmets and shields. Perfume sellers fill the air with the fragrance of lavender and myrtle. Children stare in amazement at colorful fabrics brought from distant lands. The games are also one of the greatest marketplaces in Greece. Trade flourishes alongside celebration. Knowledge travels just as easily as goods. A poet begins reciting verses before a growing crowd. His voice rises confidently through the warm afternoon air. Nearby, another storyteller describes the adventures of Heracles. Not far away, a philosopher has gathered several curious listeners beneath the shade of an olive tree. Questions flow as naturally as conversation. What makes a person truly honorable? Can wisdom be taught? Is courage something people are born with or something they learn? The Olympic Games become far more than an athletic festival. They become a meeting place for ideas, artists, thinkers, musicians, and ordinary families all contribute to the living culture of Greece. As the day slowly passes, the heat begins to soften. Long shadows stretch across the sacred grounds. Athletes who have completed their events now sit together sharing food and stories. The fierce competition of earlier hours has already transformed into mutual respect. A young runner congratulates the champion who defeated him. An older wrestler quietly offers advice to a boy preparing for his first games 4 years from now. Experience is shared generously. No one wishes to keep knowledge hidden. Watching these conversations unfold, you begin to understand why the Olympic Games survive for centuries. They strengthen relationships between cities that might otherwise remain strangers. Every gathering renews old friendships, creates new ones, and reminds everyone that despite their differences, they belong to the same cultural world. As evening approaches, families spread blankets beneath the trees surrounding the sanctuary. Simple meals are shared: fresh bread, olives, cheese, dried figs, small cups of watered wine. Children imitate the athletes they watched earlier. One pretends to throw an imaginary discus. Another races between two olive trees while friends cheer loudly from the grass. Their laughter fills the warm evening air. Perhaps years from now, one of these children will return as a competitor. Dreams often begin with simple moments like these. The sun finally slips below the western hills. The sky turns shades of gold, then orange, then deep purple. Oil lamps appear throughout the sanctuary. Their gentle light reflects against marble columns that have watched countless generations gather here. You take one last slow walk through Olympia. The crowds have become quieter now. Some visitors prepare for the long journey home. Others remain beside small fires telling stories beneath a sky filled with stars. It is difficult to imagine a more peaceful ending to the day. You pause beneath one of the sacred olive trees whose branches have crowned champions for generations. Its trunk is old beyond memory. It has stood here through countless Olympic festivals. Watching thousands of athletes arrive with hope in their hearts and leave carrying memories that would last a lifetime. The leaves move gently in the evening breeze, almost as though the tree itself is whispering the lessons of the games. True victory is not measured only by speed, or strength, or applause. It is measured by discipline, character, perseverance, and the willingness to become a little better than you were yesterday. Those ideals were born here more than 2,000 years ago, and even now, long after the cheers have faded, long after the athletes have gone home, they continue to inspire people all around the world. Tomorrow, your journey through ancient Greece will continue once again. But tonight, as darkness settles peacefully across Olympia, you understand why this quiet sanctuary became one of the most enduring symbols of human achievement. After witnessing the excitement of Olympia, you return once more to Athens. The familiar streets welcome you like old friends. The merchants are already arranging their stalls. The scent of fresh bread once again drifts through the morning air. Children hurry toward their lessons. Craftsmen open the heavy wooden doors of their workshops. Life continues exactly as it did before the games. Yet today your curiosity leads you somewhere few visitors ever see, toward the sea. Athens owes much of its prosperity not only to the land surrounding it, but also to the water stretching far beyond the horizon. The road gradually descends toward the great harbor of Piraeus. Long before you reach the shoreline, you begin hearing its unmistakable sounds. Wood creaks beneath heavy cargo. Ropes tighten against tall masts. Seagulls circle overhead searching for scraps left by fishermen. Voices echo from every direction. The harbor never truly sleeps. As you step onto the busy docks, an entirely different world opens before you. Merchant ships line the waterfront. Some have arrived only hours ago after crossing the Aegean Sea. Others are preparing for journeys that may last weeks. Their wooden hulls carry far more than cargo. They carry news, ideas, stories, and people from every corner of the Mediterranean. Sailors unload enormous clay amphorae filled with olive oil and wine. Others carefully carry sacks of grain balanced across their shoulders. Nearby workers roll heavy bundles of timber onto waiting carts. Everything moves with surprising organization. Every person understands their task. Every delay costs valuable time. The smell here is unlike anywhere else you have visited. Salt water mixes with fresh fish. Pine wood. Tar used to waterproof ships, and the smoke from nearby cooking fires where sailors prepare simple meals before departing once again. You pause beside a vessel whose crew is making final preparations. The captain studies the sky with experienced eyes. There are no compasses, no accurate maps, no engines waiting below the deck. The sea demands patience, skill, and courage. Greek sailors navigate using the coastline, the position of the sun, the stars above them, a knowledge passed down through generations. Many know every island, every dangerous reef, every reliable harbor by memory alone. One mistake during a storm can end an entire voyage. Yet despite these dangers, ships continue leaving every day. Trade is the lifeblood of Greece. A merchant proudly shows you his cargo. Fine painted pottery from Athens, olive oil stored inside carefully sealed amphorae, beautiful woven cloth, bronze tools. These goods will soon travel to Egypt, Cyprus, southern Italy, the coast of Asia Minor, and countless islands scattered across the Mediterranean. When the ship returns, it will bring entirely different treasures: papyrus from Egypt, precious metals, rare spices, exotic perfumes, ivory, glass, and stories of distant civilizations that most Athenians will never see with their own eyes. Standing on the dock, you begin to realize that ancient Greece is never isolated. Its cities are connected to an enormous network stretching across the known world. Ideas travel alongside merchandise, a new farming technique, a different style of architecture, a strange musical instrument, a foreign myth. Every voyage changes Greece just a little. Nearby, a young sailor prepares for his very first journey. His family has come to say goodbye. His mother embraces him tightly. His younger brother tries to appear brave but cannot hide his worry. No one knows exactly what awaits beyond the horizon. Pirates sometimes attack merchant vessels. Storms appear without warning. Ships may disappear for months. Some never return. Every departure carries both hope and uncertainty. Before boarding, the crew gathers around a small altar near the harbor. The captain pours a little wine onto the ground. A short prayer is offered to Poseidon, Lord of the sea. The waves that moments ago seemed calm now appear far more powerful. The sailors understand something every experienced mariner eventually learns. No matter how skilled you become, the sea always deserves respect. As the ropes are released, the ship slowly drifts away from the dock. Large square sails catch the morning wind. The vessel gradually grows smaller against the brilliant blue water. Families continue waving long after the crew can no longer distinguish individual faces. For some, this goodbye lasts only a few weeks. For others, many months. And for a few, it is the last farewell they will ever share. Watching the ship disappear toward the open sea, you understand why the Greeks became such remarkable sailors. The mountains divided their homeland. The sea united it. Every island became another neighbor. Every voyage another opportunity. And every returning ship carried with it not only wealth, but another piece of the wider world waiting beyond the horizon. As the merchant ship disappears beyond the horizon, you remain standing quietly at the edge of the harbor. The sea has become calm once again. Gentle waves roll against the wooden piers. Seagulls circle above the fishing boats, hoping for an easy meal. The busy harbor continues its work as though nothing extraordinary has happened. Another ship departs. Another arrives. This endless rhythm has continued for generations. You decide to walk along the waterfront where fishermen are returning from their morning catch. Their boats are much smaller than the great merchant vessels. Most are simple wooden craft powered by sails and oars. Inside them lie baskets filled with sea bream, mackerel, octopus, and shellfish collected from the rocky shoreline. Fishing provides an important source of food for many Greek families. For those living near the coast, the sea is both marketplace and pantry. Several fishermen sit together repairing torn nets. Their hands move quickly without hesitation. Every knot has been tied thousands of times before. A younger boy watches closely beside them. Soon he will learn the same skills. No written instructions are needed. Experience passes naturally from one generation to the next. Nearby, a shipbuilder carefully shapes a long piece of pine with a bronze tool. Fresh wood fills the air with its sharp, pleasant scent. The skeleton of a new vessel slowly rises beside him. Building a ship requires remarkable precision. Each plank must fit perfectly. Every joint must remain strong enough to survive powerful storms far from land. Months of work may pass before the vessel finally touches the water for the first time. The people building it understand that countless lives may one day depend upon the quality of their craftsmanship. As you continue along the docks, you notice warehouses standing side by side. Inside them, workers carefully organize enormous clay amphorae. Each vessel carries painted markings identifying its contents and its place of origin. Olive oil from Attica, wine from Chios, honey from the countryside, grain imported from Egypt. The harbor functions almost like the beating heart of the city. Every shipment entering or leaving Athens keeps the entire economy alive. Without these ships, life in the city would become much more difficult. Athens simply cannot produce everything its growing population requires. Trade makes prosperity possible. A group of foreign merchants passes nearby speaking a language you do not recognize. Their clothing differs from that worn by the Athenians. Their hairstyles, their jewelry, even the way they greet one another feels unfamiliar. Yet business quickly overcomes every difference. Coins, measurements, and honest agreements become a common language understood by everyone. The harbor introduces Athenians to cultures far beyond Greece itself. New customs arrive with every successful voyage. Some are quickly adopted. Others remain fascinating curiosities. Little by little, the Greek world continues expanding not through conquest, but through contact. As the afternoon sun reflects across the sea, the water begins sparkling like polished silver. Several children play along the shoreline collecting smooth shells and colorful stones. They laugh as small waves wash over their feet. Not far away, an elderly sailor sits quietly beside an overturned boat. His face has been shaped by decades beneath the sun. Deep lines surround his eyes. His hands are rough from rope, salt water, and hard work. A small group of children gathers around him. Without any encouragement, he begins telling stories. He speaks of enormous storms that turned daylight into darkness, of dolphins racing beside his ship, of strange islands where the mountains seem to rise directly from the sea, of Egyptian temples larger than anything found in Greece. Perhaps every detail is true. Perhaps a few have grown slightly larger with every retelling. No one seems to mind. The children listen with complete attention. For them, the sea is still full of endless possibilities. Every distant sail invites another adventure. Every unexplored island promises another story waiting to be discovered. As evening slowly approaches, fishing boats begin returning one after another. Families wait patiently along the shore. Some wave excitedly as fathers, brothers, and sons step safely onto the dock once again. Fresh fish is quickly carried toward the marketplace where tomorrow's customers will gather before sunrise. The harbor never truly stops working. Its rhythm simply changes with the passing hours. You take one final look across the open water. Beyond that distant horizon lie countless civilizations: Egypt, Phoenicia, Cyprus, Sicily, and lands that many Greeks will know only through stories brought home by sailors. Yet despite the enormous distances separating them, the sea quietly connects them all. It carries food, trade, knowledge, music, ideas, and dreams from one shore to another. Standing there, you begin to understand that the Mediterranean is far more than a body of water. For the people of ancient Greece, it is a great highway without roads, a bridge without stone, a living pathway that allows an entire civilization to reach beyond its mountains and discover the wider world. And as the sun slowly sinks beneath the endless blue horizon, you realize that every ship sailing into the unknown carries something more valuable than its cargo. It carries hope. Several weeks have now passed since you first opened your eyes in ancient Greece. The streets of Athens no longer feel unfamiliar. You recognize the voices of merchants opening their shops before sunrise. You know the smell of fresh bread drifting from clay ovens. You can almost predict the rhythm of the city before each new day begins. Yet there is still one experience waiting for you, one that reveals how an ordinary Greek family celebrates the moments that matter most. A festival. Unlike modern holidays marked by bright decorations and fireworks, Greek festivals are deeply connected to religion. The gods are thanked for successful harvests. Victories are celebrated. The changing seasons are honored. Entire cities pause to share food, music, prayers, and laughter together. Today, Athens is preparing for one of those special occasions. Even before sunrise, the atmosphere feels different. Doorways have been swept clean. Fresh flowers decorate small household altars. Children run excitedly through the streets carrying small branches of olive and laurel. The city seems brighter somehow. Not because the sun shines more strongly, but because everyone expects something joyful. As you walk toward the center of the city, you notice families wearing their finest clothing. Simple tunics have been carefully washed. Colorful cloaks rest neatly across their shoulders. Jewelry that is rarely worn during ordinary days now catches the morning light. People greet one another warmly. Neighbors who hurried past each other yesterday now stop to exchange smiles and conversation. Festivals slow the pace of life. Work can wait. Community comes first. Soon the streets begin filling with music. The soft notes of a flute drift between the buildings. A lyre joins the melody. Someone begins singing. Others quietly follow. No great orchestra is needed. The music belongs to everyone. The closer you move toward the temple, the larger the gathering becomes. Priests prepare offerings upon carefully arranged altars. Baskets overflow with bread, fruit, flowers, and fragrant herbs. Nearby, several citizens lead beautifully decorated animals that will become part of the ceremonial sacrifice. To modern eyes, this tradition may appear unfamiliar, but for the Greek, sacrifice is understood as an act of gratitude rather than cruelty. The shared meal that follows allows the entire community to celebrate together. Very little is wasted. The ceremony begins with silence. Thousands of people stand quietly beneath the bright blue sky. A priest raises his hands. A short prayer is spoken. The names of the gods echo across the gathering. Everyone bows their heads. For a few peaceful moments, the noisy city becomes completely still. Then life returns all at once. Musicians begin playing again. Children laugh. Conversations resume. The celebration has officially begun. As you continue through the crowd, you discover performers wearing colorful masks. Actors prepare for theatrical performances that will begin later in the day. Ancient Greece loves stories. Not only the old myths told inside family homes, but great dramas performed before thousands of spectators. Some tell tragic tales of kings brought down by pride. Others make entire audiences laugh through clever comedy. The theatre is more than entertainment. It encourages people to think about justice, courage, kindness, and the consequences of human choices. Nearby, a group of dancers forms a large circle. Their movements are graceful and perfectly coordinated. Young children eagerly try to imitate every step. Older relatives smile patiently while offering gentle corrections. No one seems embarrassed. The dances belong to everyone. They have been shared across generations for longer than anyone can remember. The smell of roasting meat slowly fills the warm afternoon air. Tables are prepared beneath shaded trees. Fresh bread, cheese, olives, figs, honey, and wine appear in generous amounts. For many ordinary families, festivals provide one of the few opportunities to enjoy such abundance. Neighbors invite one another to join their meals. Visitors are welcomed warmly. Even strangers rarely remain alone for long. As you sit beneath the shade of an olive tree, surrounded by music, laughter, and conversation, you begin to understand why these celebrations matter so deeply. They remind people that life is not measured only by work, harvests, or daily responsibilities. It is also measured by shared memories, friendship, gratitude, and those rare moments when an entire community gathers not because it must, but because it truly wants to. As the afternoon slowly gives way to evening, the celebration shows no sign of ending. If anything, the city feels even more alive than it did only a few hours ago. The heat of the day begins to soften. A gentle breeze carries the scent of olive trees through the streets. Oil lamps are carefully placed outside homes and temples. One by one, they begin to glow as the sunlight fades. Golden light dances across marble columns. The city seems transformed. Children continue running through the open squares, laughing together without the slightest concern for tomorrow. Older citizens gather beneath shaded porticos, sharing stories they have told many times before. Each telling grows a little richer, a little warmer, a little more familiar. No one seems to mind hearing the same stories again. In fact, that is part of the joy. The stories belong to everyone. Nearby, a group of musicians begins another performance. The gentle sound of the lyre blends beautifully with the clear notes of the flute. Several young dancers step into the open space between the crowd. Their movements are graceful, measured, almost effortless. People clap softly to the rhythm. Some older couples quietly join them. There is no stage separating performers from the audience. The celebration belongs to the entire community. For a little while, social differences seem less important. Merchants stand beside farmers. Craftsmen laugh with fishermen. Children chase each other around respected philosophers who smile rather than complain. Even visitors from distant cities become part of the gathering. Shared traditions have a remarkable way of making strangers feel like neighbors. As darkness settles completely across Athens, your attention is drawn upward. The Acropolis stands illuminated by hundreds of flickering lamps. Its temples appear almost dreamlike against the night sky. The Parthenon seems less like a building and more like a silent guardian watching over the sleeping city below. For generations, these same temples have witnessed celebrations just like this one. The people change. The seasons change. The years pass quietly, yet the traditions continue. You begin walking away from the crowded square. The sounds of music gradually grow softer behind you. Soon only distant laughter remains. The narrow streets are peaceful once again. A cat quietly slips between two houses. Someone closes a wooden shutter. A family finishes their evening meal behind an open courtyard wall. Life slowly returns to its familiar rhythm. You stop for a moment beside a small fountain. The water reflects the stars above. Looking into its still surface, you realize how much ancient Greece has changed your understanding of history. When most people imagine this civilization, they think first of philosophers, great battles, magnificent temples, or famous heroes. Yet after living among its people, you discover something far more meaningful. Ancient Greece was built by ordinary lives, by parents teaching their children, by farmers tending olive trees planted decades earlier, by fishermen greeting the sunrise each morning, by potters shaping clay with patient hands, by merchants opening their stalls before dawn, by musicians filling quiet evenings with gentle melodies, by neighbors sharing bread after another long day. History is rarely created only by extraordinary people. More often it grows slowly from millions of ordinary moments. Each conversation, each meal, each friendship, each lesson quietly becomes part of something much larger. Perhaps that is the greatest legacy of ancient Greece. Not only democracy, or philosophy, or the Olympic Games, but the belief that an ordinary life lived with curiosity, discipline, kindness, and a love of learning can leave an extraordinary mark upon the world. The city grows quieter with every passing minute. One by one, the oil lamps disappear behind closed doors. The stars shine brightly above the Acropolis. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls into the peaceful night. A cool breeze carries the scent of the sea through the sleeping streets. Tomorrow another sunrise will awaken Athens. The baker will prepare fresh bread. The fishermen will return to the harbor. Teachers will welcome eager students. Merchants will arrange their goods. Children will fill the streets with laughter. Life will continue exactly as it has for centuries. And as you take one final look across the rooftops of ancient Greece, you quietly realize something. Although more than 2,000 years separate your world from theirs, the hopes, the worries, the friendships, the families, and the simple search for a meaningful life remain wonderfully familiar. Some things change with time, and some things never truly do. As the days pass, you begin to notice something remarkable. Life in ancient Greece is guided by rhythms, the rising and setting of the sun, the changing of the seasons, the planting of crops, the arrival of merchant ships, the celebration of festivals. Nothing seems hurried, nothing feels completely still. Everything moves with a quiet sense of balance. After spending so much time in Athens, you decide to climb one last hill overlooking the city. The path is familiar now. Olive trees sway gently in the morning breeze. Small birds dart between the branches. Far below, you can already hear the city beginning another ordinary day. From this peaceful height, Athens appears almost timeless. Thin streams of smoke rise from hundreds of homes as families prepare breakfast. The Acropolis catches the first rays of sunlight. Beyond it, the sparkling sea stretches toward the horizon where merchant ships slowly become tiny white shapes against the blue water. It is difficult to believe that one relatively small city could influence the entire course of history. Yet that is exactly what happened, not through enormous armies, nor endless riches, but through ideas. You think about everything you have experienced during your journey, the baker rising before dawn, the children practicing their letters, the philosophers asking difficult questions, the athletes competing at Olympia. The farmers patiently harvesting olives beneath ancient trees, the sailors disappearing beyond the horizon in search of distant lands. Each person seemed ordinary. None believed they were shaping the future. Yet together, they created one of the most influential civilizations the world has ever known. You slowly make your way back toward the city. This time you notice details that escaped your attention when you first arrived. A craftsman smiles proudly as his young apprentice successfully completes a difficult task for the first time. An elderly woman patiently teaches her granddaughter how to weave colorful wool into neat patterns. A merchant quietly gives an extra piece of bread to a family who cannot quite afford their full purchase. Small acts of kindness appear everywhere. History books often remember great leaders, but civilizations survive because of ordinary people caring for one another. As you enter the Agora for perhaps the final time, everything feels comfortably familiar. The same pottery stalls, the same smell of olive oil, the same conversations echoing beneath the stone colonnades. Some merchants even recognize you now. A friendly wave, a warm smile, a short greeting. In only a few weeks, the unfamiliar city has begun to feel almost like home. You pause beside a potter shaping wet clay upon a spinning wheel. His hands remain perfectly steady. The vessel slowly rises beneath gentle pressure from his fingers. Watching him work, you realize that civilizations are built in much the same way. Slowly, patiently, one careful movement at a time. No masterpiece appears instantly. Neither does a great society. Both require generations of quiet dedication. Nearby, a philosopher continues speaking with several young students. You hear only a single sentence as you pass. Know yourself. The words are simple, yet they remain powerful. Perhaps that is another gift ancient Greece offers the world, not easy answers, but questions worth carrying throughout life. What makes a person wise? What creates happiness? How should we live? The Greeks never stopped asking. Perhaps neither should we. As midday approaches, the city grows warmer. Children laugh while chasing one another across the open square. A musician quietly tunes his lyre beneath the shade of a column. Fresh bread emerges from another clay oven, filling the air with its familiar, comforting aroma. For a moment, everything seems perfectly ordinary. And perhaps that is exactly what makes it extraordinary, because these simple moments, shared by thousands of people every single day, eventually became the foundation of a civilization remembered across the world. You find yourself slowing your pace, not because you are tired, but because you know your journey through ancient Greece is almost over. There is no desire to rush these final moments. Instead, you simply watch, listen, and quietly appreciate the peaceful rhythm of a world that disappeared long ago, yet somehow still feels wonderfully alive. The sun has begun its slow descent toward the western horizon. A warm golden light spreads across the rooftops of Athens one final time. The marble buildings glow softly beneath the evening sky. Long shadows stretch across the familiar streets where you have spent so many peaceful days. You find yourself returning to the same quiet hill where your journey first began. From here, the entire city lies before you. The Acropolis rises proudly above the homes below. Thin trails of smoke drift gently into the still air as families prepare their evening meals. Far beyond the city walls, the sea sparkles beneath the fading sunlight. Everything feels calm, unhurried, almost timeless. It is difficult to believe that thousands of years will eventually pass. Empires will rise. Empires will disappear. Languages will change. Borders will be redrawn countless times. Yet somehow the ideas born in places like this will continue traveling through history. You think of Socrates asking questions in the Agora, of Plato imagining the ideal society, of Aristotle carefully studying the natural world. Their voices have long since fallen silent, yet students across the world still read their words. You think of the architects who carefully measured every column of the Parthenon. Their names are mostly forgotten, yet their understanding of beauty continues inspiring builders even today. You remember the athletes of Olympia. Their olive wreaths have long since returned to dust. Yet every 4 years the Olympic flame reminds the world of the ideals first celebrated beneath the Greek sun. You remember the farmers patiently caring for olive trees they knew they might never see fully grown. Those trees taught a quiet lesson. Some of the greatest things we create are not built for ourselves alone. They are gifts left for those who come after us. As you watch the city below, another thought begins to settle gently into your mind. The people of ancient Greece never believed they were living inside history. To them, this was simply life. Wake before sunrise, prepare breakfast, teach the children, repair the fishing nets, harvest the olives, meet friends in the marketplace, return home before nightfall. Tomorrow would be much the same. And the day after that. History often looks extraordinary only when viewed from a great distance. Living through it usually feels wonderfully ordinary. Perhaps the same is true for our own lives. The ordinary moments we hardly notice today may someday become the stories future generations wish they could experience. The laughter around a family table, a conversation with a friend, the comfort of returning home after a long day. Simple moments often become life's most meaningful memories. The evening breeze grows cooler. Somewhere below, a shepherd guides his flock toward shelter. A fisherman secures his boat for the night. Children reluctantly leave their games as parents call them home for supper. Oil lamps begin glowing behind wooden shutters, one by one. The city slowly prepares for sleep. You take one final walk through the quiet streets. The familiar sounds have become comforting now. Footsteps on worn stone, the gentle creak of wooden doors, soft voices drifting from open courtyards, the distant melody of a lone flute carried through the warm evening air. Nothing spectacular is happening, and yet everything feels beautiful. You stop for a final moment beneath an old olive tree standing just outside the city. Its branches sway gently in the breeze. It has watched countless generations come and go. Children grow into parents. Parents become grandparents. Cities change. Kings disappear. New ideas replace old ones. Yet the tree remains, patient, silent, steady. It reminds you that the greatest strength is often found not in dramatic moments, but in quiet endurance. Above you, the first stars begin appearing in the darkening sky. They are the very same stars that guided Greek sailors across the sea. The same stars philosophers quietly studied while wondering about the universe. The same stars children pointed toward while listening to stories of gods and heroes. Thousands of years have passed, yet those stars remain unchanged. You look toward them one last time, then back toward the peaceful city resting beneath their light. Ancient Greece is no longer just a place you have visited. It has become a collection of memories, of quiet mornings, warm bread, busy marketplaces, gentle conversations, olive trees, blue seas, and people whose ordinary lives quietly helped shape the world we know today. As darkness finally settles across the hills of Attica, The city slowly falls asleep, and perhaps, as you close your own eyes tonight, a small part of ancient Greece will travel home with you. The morning arrives quietly. For the first time since your journey began, there is nowhere you need to go. No marketplace waiting to be explored. No temple rising above the city. No festival. No Olympic competition. No merchant ship preparing to leave the harbor. Instead, you decide to do something the people of ancient Greece value deeply. You simply walk, without a destination, without urgency. Athens awakens around you just as it always has. The baker opens his oven before sunrise. The smell of warm barley bread drifts gently through the cool morning air. A potter carries fresh clay toward his workshop. Children laugh as they chase one another through the narrow streets before beginning their lessons. An elderly woman sweeps the stone doorway of her home. A shepherd guides several goats toward the hills outside the city. Nothing extraordinary is happening, and perhaps that is the greatest gift your journey has given you. You have learned to appreciate ordinary moments. As you wander through the familiar streets, you begin recognizing faces. The merchant who always greets his customers with a smile. The fisherman who repairs his nets outside the harbor every afternoon. The little boy who dreams of becoming an Olympic champion. The old philosopher who never seems to stop asking questions. Without realizing it, they have become part of your own story. You pass through the Agora one final time. The marketplace is exactly as lively as ever. Fresh vegetables fill woven baskets. Bright pottery catches the morning sunlight. Voices rise and fall as neighbors greet one another. Coins change hands. Children carry small bundles for their parents. Nothing has changed. And yet everything feels different, not because the city has changed, but because you have. When you first arrived, these streets belonged to strangers. Now they feel familiar. You no longer see only buildings and temples. You see lives. You imagine the families behind every doorway, the hopes carried by every traveler, the years of patient work behind every handmade object. History has become personal. Leaving the marketplace, you make your way toward a quiet hillside overlooking the city. A large olive tree offers welcome shade. You sit beneath its twisting branches and simply watch. The wind moves softly through the silver-green leaves. Birds glide above the rooftops. Far away, a merchant ship slowly disappears into the brilliant blue sea. The entire landscape seems perfectly balanced. Sea, mountains, stone, sky, olive trees. No wonder the Greeks believed harmony could be found in nature itself. Perhaps this peaceful landscape quietly shaped the civilization that grew within it. As you rest beneath the tree, your thoughts drift toward the people you have met. The farmer never expected his olive grove to become part of history. The mother weaving cloth inside her courtyard did not know future generations would wonder how she lived. The teacher patiently guiding children through the alphabet could never imagine that people thousands of years later would still admire Greek learning. None of them believed they were extraordinary, yet together they built something extraordinary. That may be one of history's most beautiful lessons. Great civilizations are not created by famous names alone. They are built by countless ordinary people performing ordinary tasks with care. A loaf of bread baked before sunrise. A fishing net repaired with patience. A child encouraged to ask one more question. A neighbor welcomed into your home. Small moments repeated across generations become the foundation of history itself. The sun climbs higher into the sky. Warm light spreads across the hills of Attica. Somewhere below, a lyre begins playing a gentle melody. The sound rises through the still morning air before slowly fading into the distance. You close your eyes for just a moment. The breeze carries the scent of wild herbs. Olive leaves rustle softly overhead. It becomes surprisingly easy to forget the modern world. For a few peaceful moments, there is only ancient Greece. Only quiet, only sunlight, only the simple rhythm of everyday life. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all. Not how this civilization built magnificent temples, or created democracy, or inspired philosophers whose ideas still shape our world, but how a people living such ordinary lives managed to leave behind something so extraordinary. Their monuments still stand. Their stories are still told, their questions are still asked, and their quiet mornings continue to echo across more than 2,000 years of human history. As the afternoon slowly fades into evening, you realize that your journey through ancient Greece has finally reached its last chapter. The familiar streets begin growing quiet once again. Shopkeepers carefully close their wooden shutters. The final customers leave the marketplace carrying bread, olives, and small bundles for tomorrow. Children return home, their laughter gradually fading into the distance. The city prepares for another peaceful night. You find yourself walking one final time toward the Acropolis. The climb feels easier now than it did on your first day. Every stone beneath your feet has become familiar. Every turn in the path carries a memory. At the top you stop and look across the city one last time. The view is breathtaking. Golden light washes across marble temples. The rooftops stretch gently toward the sea. Far beyond the harbor, the Mediterranean glows beneath the setting sun. Somewhere out there, merchant ships continue their endless journeys. Some will return safely, others may never be seen again. But life will continue, just as it always has. You sit quietly on a smooth stone and allow yourself a few moments of silence. No speeches, no great discoveries, no dramatic ending. Only the peaceful sound of the evening wind moving through the ancient columns. Sometimes history speaks most clearly when it says almost nothing at all. You think back to the beginning of your journey, when ancient Greece was simply a name in a history book, a place filled with famous philosophers, magnificent temples, and distant legends. Now it feels entirely different. You no longer remember only the monuments. You remember the smell of warm bread before sunrise, the quiet conversations between neighbors, the rhythm of sandals against worn stone streets, the sound of a lyre drifting through an open courtyard, the silver leaves of ancient olive trees dancing in the breeze, the laughter of children playing beneath the afternoon sun, the gentle waves against the harbor, the ordinary moments that history so often forgets. And perhaps those ordinary moments were the true heart of ancient Greece all along. Every civilization leaves behind its monuments, but what truly gives those monuments meaning are the people who once lived beside them, the parents who raised their children, the teachers who encouraged curiosity, the craftsmen who shaped beauty from simple materials, the sailors who trusted the sea, the farmers who patiently waited through every season, the friends who gathered together at the end of another ordinary day. Their names may have disappeared, yet their lives still quietly echo through time. Perhaps that is why history continues to fascinate us, not because it belongs to people who were completely different from ourselves, but because beneath the clothing, the languages, and the passing centuries, we discover something wonderfully familiar. People have always searched for happiness. They have always worried about tomorrow. They have always hoped their children would live better lives. They have always looked up at the same stars and wondered what lay beyond them. The centuries chain. The questions remain. The last rays of sunlight slowly disappear beyond the distant hills. One by one, the oil lamps begin glowing across Athens. The city becomes a sea of tiny golden lights beneath the deepening blue sky. Above them, the first stars quietly appear, the same stars that watched over Socrates, the same stars that guided sailors across the Mediterranean, the same stars that shine above us tonight. For a brief moment, time itself seems to disappear. Past and present feel closer than ever. You take one final deep breath of the cool evening air. Then, quietly, you begin walking away. The sounds of Athens grow softer behind you. The marble temples become distant silhouettes. The harbor disappears beyond the hills. The olive groves fade into darkness. Little by little, ancient Greece gently slips into memory. But perhaps that is exactly where it belongs, not as a place we can return to, but as a reminder that wisdom often begins with curiosity, that beauty can be found in simplicity, that communities grow stronger through kindness, and that the smallest moments of everyday life are often the ones that shape history forever. Thank you for joining me on this peaceful journey through the everyday life of ancient Greece. I hope these ancient streets, quiet harbors, sunlit olive groves, and timeless conversations brought you a little closer to the people who lived here more than 2,000 years ago. If you enjoyed traveling through history together, I would be honored if you join me again for another relaxing journey into the past. Until then, sleep well, and wherever history takes us next, may your dreams always lead you somewhere extraordinary.